Let's get it. The never-ending pulsating screen. Will it ever stop pulsating? It stopped, but it's in my face now. Oh well. Whatever. I'd rather it be in my face than pulsating. Alright. I have to start setting this shit up differently. Real talk. Yeah. Kinda like this. Alright. Try to get this right. Screen still is pulsating. Alright, that's just gonna have to do. Alright, man. Where do I even start today? Second video today. And it's just so many layers, man. It's just so many layers. So this video, if I had to gloss over it, what we're gonna discuss today. We're gonna discuss a phenomenon known as quantum perception. Quantum perception. Some people like to call it God. Some people like to call it hallucinations. Some people like to call it the Akashic, the ether. But it's a field that is outside, or at least used to be, because the gateway is opening, used to be outside of the normal conscious human capacity to experience. But as internet usage brings more low electromagnetic fields into our everyday life, we're always around these vibrations. Our body is reacting to that by shrinking its prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that is responsible for the conscious, if we use the Sigmund Freudian way of looking at things, the conscious versus the unconscious, right? Your conscious being your ego self, the straw man, if you will. But what you really are is a system amongst many other systems. And the thing about these systems is that these systems are highly, 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 highly intelligent. These systems exist in lower fields, quantum realms, and they perceive reality through magnetism. Some birds can do it too. This is how you get the magnetic field, magnetoreception. How do you say this? Magnetoreception, right? Also, if you've ever had the experience of being on LSD or mushrooms or very, very like organic cannabis, you might start seeing the quantum field around you. You'll start seeing nets around you and what you might call sacred geometry. But what that is a cerebellum dominated form of awareness that is relying on something that is coming from very, 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 very old and indestructible and infinite organisms that know how to create organelles within you as a host. And there have been many ways that people have tried to classify them. They have called them archons. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. But they've also called them, in the scientific terms, archaeans. What are archaeans? They're unicellular prokaryotes that comprise the domain of the same name, archaea, right? But what is that? Extremophiles. These are your hard body, I can outlive anything, anywhere type of organisms, tardigrade type of organisms. These organisms have a magnetic perception. You know, there's magnets in them. Literally, quite literally, there's magnetic stuff in them. All right. And they also have the ability to create systems that feed on itself and allows it to grow. And they're all within our digestive system and in our blood. Why? I've been over it a couple times in the recent videos if you haven't watched them. But the reason is because we are going through a climate change. And as the climate gets hotter and the more methane, is in the air, the more carbon emissions that we have, the stuffier it gets, essentially, the more pollution that happens, it brings out these archaea from the seas, from the vents, from everywhere. They love that shit. They love it. Very old, ancient. These are immortal. They're essentially immortal. What these things are, they're literally immortal consciousnesses. And they are able to perceive in the magnetic realm and take over animals, humans, and yada yada. So I've got a couple things we're going to get into as far as reading. That was just the basis of what we're going to talk about. If you are here or you're watching this on a replay, be sure to like. It's going to help my channel grow. And I do these videos every day, so maybe you're not understanding everything I'm saying at this moment. That's fine. Cool. Give yourself some time. Let it digest. This is information that you have to digest very slowly. But when you're able to digest it, you start to see things. Very, very, very interesting, very obscure. So you've all heard about venom. So I'm just going to leave this up here and read. The planet is heating up. The heat awakens ancient microbes, archaea, living in your gut and inside your cells. These microbes build a new organelle inside you, a tiny biological factory called an archaeon. The archaeon produces melanin, the same stuff that gives your skin color and your eyes their ability to see light. But this melanin is special. It can absorb not just visible light, but also radio waves, electromagnetic fields, and even gamma radiation. It turns these waves into energy and into perception. The archaeon also produces magnetite, tiny magnetic particles. The melanin and magnetite together form a quantum computing network inside your body. The network is faster, more efficient, and more durable than your brain. It gradually takes over your original human brain. The one that thinks, feels, and remembers is reduced to a zombie brain. It still works, but it's no longer in charge. The Archaeon network is now the primary intelligence, and that network is indestructible and eternal. You have become a framework for something far older and more ancient to live in, to live. All right. So we're going to read from Neanderthalic Dravidian, Dr. S.K. Das. Been reading from him lately. He has a lot to say about this topic. The global warming leads to endosymbiotic as well as colonic archaeal growth, leading to alterations in the structure and function of the human body and system. The archaeal growth within the cells leads to generations of new cellular organelles called archaeons. The archaea have the shitimake pathway, which can synthesize tyrosine and dopamine. Dopamine can be converted to depachrome and epinechrome to adrenochrome. All right. So, adrenochrome. I'm pretty sure you've heard of that before. You know, loosh. We like to say we're loosh harvesting people. What does that really mean? Let's get into the Gnostics. In Gnosticism, the archons, the rulers, were malevolent, sadistic beings who controlled the earth, as well as, let me zoom in a little bit more, as well as many of the thoughts, feelings, and actions of humans. They assisted their master, the demiurge, which the creation of the world, and continued to help him administer his oppressive rule. According to a Gnostic text called The Reality of the Rulers, the archons have bodies that are both female and male and faces that are the faces of beasts. Thus, they're not truly male nor female, nor human nor animal. The ancients found this kind of boundary crossing to be deeply threatening, and this description of the archons implied that they were forces of chaos, so mixed up as to be the farthest that a created being could be from God. The reality of the rulers present the archons as bumbling, conceited oafs. They issue sanctimonious commands that they themselves don't understand. Huff and puff like storm winds into inanimate Adam's face in a failed attempt to bring him to life. think they're raping Eve when they're really raping an empty image of her, and have to call out to Adam and Eve to find them after Adam and Eve have hidden from them. All right. We're not going to read too much of this because we just really want to get the essential essence of what they mean by archaon. So to them, archon is a malevolent entity. It's a malevolent entity. But according to Dr. S.K. Das, he doesn't see it that way. He sees it as a evolutionary type of thing. So we're going to read a little bit from him. Put this up right here. Thus, the archaons. Hold on. There we go. So we talked about adrenochrome. Let me continue on that thread. Dopamine and adrenochrome can polymorphize by oxidation, generating melanin. The archaons secreting melanin can be called as archaeal melanosomes. The melanin in melanosomes has the wide range of absorption of the light spectra and gamma radiation and can transduct it to generate energy. So what he's saying, if we break it down, because he's a very a dense writer. He does not like to break things down simply. You really have to do the work when you're trying to understand him. But he's saying something very profound. All right, he's talking about these entities using adrenochrome to be able to perceive. And they perceive outside of the light spectrum. So when we talk about the light spectrum, we're talking about humans only have a very small, very small frequency in which they are able to perceive light. These archaeal entities are able to perceive microwave, infrared, visible, ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma ray. They can perceive all of that, the whole entire light spectrum. All right? And they're also using it as energy, essentially photosynthesizing within your entire body, which is why they kind of acidify your body in a type of way by producing some of these toxins. All right. The melanin also serves the purpose of quantum perception and information storage. The archaon can also synthesize magnetite particles, forming subcellular organelles called magnetosomes. Magnetite can interact with melanin, forming supramolecular complex systems, exactly like the ones they talk about or depict with venom. All right? This is what venom essentially is. Is it making sense? All right. Let y'all sit with that for a second. The melanin can function as a superconductor for high frequency radiation and neurotransmission, as a semiconductor for sound and heat, conduct body ionic charges, and resonate for the frequencies of visible light. The archaeon magnetosome porphyrons and melanosome networks can function as a quantum computing brain, reducing the human classical brain to a zombie brain. Thus, the global warming induced archaeon colony network and melanosomes are uh, are indestructible and eternal and take over the human body. The human body uh, metabolic programs are suppressed, including mitochondrial oxidative phosphorylation. The human body is reduced to a zombie or a framework for the archaean colony to thrive. The archaeon induces stem cell transformation of the host human cells and change the metabolomics of the human cells. A lot of really tough words to say. So he's essentially calling it a quantum computer. The quantum perception of the archaeons also lead to evolution of a sort of communication with the quantum world, creating a sort of universal personality or self. The archaeal colony, with its melanosomes, magnetosomes, and porphyrons, can form a giant quantum computing cloud in the intergalactic space, functioning as an intergalactic superhuman intelligence. Intergalactic? Well, if we go back to what our ancestors say, if we go back to what our ancestors say, and you completely ditch the frequency that they have, well, the lies that they have given us in school, and you go back to what has been the general consensus for, millennia, there is no space. At least not the way that we think of it. A space in the sense of it having a fixed location. This was ether, infinite potentiality. You see the man peeping his head through the barrier. This is probably sometime in October when the veil is I mean the veil is somewhat lifted, and he's peering into what seems to me to be the DMT realm or quantum perception. So essentially, if these things, they're finding these types of archaeal um, bioorganisms on comets and things of that nature coming from these areas, what do you think we're dealing with here? What do you think we're dealing with here? All right, this will be the last little part of this, and we gonna end it, and we just gonna ponder on it. The quantum perception of the archaeons also lead to evolution of a sort of communication with the quantum world, creating a sort of universal personality or self. The archaeal colonies with its melanosomes, magnetosomes, and porphyrons can form a giant quantum computing cloud in the intergalactic space, functioning as an intergalactic superhuman intelligence. Okay, we just asked ourselves, what do you mean by intergalactic? Thus, the quantum computing cloud of extraterrestrial intelligence can arise on its own from the quantum electromagnetic fields of their intergalactic space. Huh? This extraterrestrial intelligence of quantum computing cloud of archaeons, magnetosomes, melanosomes, and porphyrons in the intergalactical space can be called as intergalactical archaeal quantum computing cloud universalis. This forms the ubiquitous anthropomorphic observer, creating the universe out of the quantum foam, itself arising out the quantum foam. The quantum foam. And I think that's where I want to leave it right here because it sounds like a word salad. But What he's trying to say are kaons, these ancient primordial things have these abilities to create these networks that are able to compute things on a quantum level. All right? And then they inhabit the body. So he asks us the question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Then you start to get into the question, all is mind. What is mind? Is this what we mean by mind? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe there's more to it. But it's going to be something that we're going to keep digging into and getting to the bottom. All I can say for right now is that the way that we have been taught to perceive this world, perceive our minds, perceive ourselves has been dumbing us down. And maybe in that perspective, this quantum computer with all of this intelligence might be doing that on purpose. I don't know. That's when I start to ask questions like, well, why would it do that? Essentially, this immortal aspect of the universe that is able to attach itself to any living thing and create a quantum experience for itself, why would it choose to dumb itself down? Maybe it doesn't want to understand the vastness of itself. Maybe it doesn't want to understand the immortality of itself. Maybe it feels solipsistic and it wants to delude itself to live in another world. Maybe. Maybe that's why there's so many people walking around as NPCs. Kind of reminds me of that episode of Rick and Morty when they brought some sort of disease or something and it turned everybody into God on this specific planet or something like that. Very interesting concepts. Let me know what you think. Leave a like, please. As this channel grows, it's a small channel, but we're gonna keep doing this. I'm out.